Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Cash Flow Project. I'm your host, Vince Gethings with Tri-City Equity Group. And on today's show, we have Gary Lipsky. Gary is a real estate entrepreneur who focuses on multifamily syndication, currently has $41 million assets under management. And according to the little bit of talk we had before the show, he looks like he has some deals in the pipeline. So that number is going to be going up, and that's what we like to see. He is the president of Break of Day Capital, whose mission is to positively impact the lives of their investors and the communities in which they invest through high level of transparency and fiduciary responsibility. Additionally, he is the host of the Real Estate Asset Management Podcast, where he speaks with various experts in the real estate industry to help educate asset managers. And he's also the author of the Best in Class, which is a book I got right here, which we're probably going to talk a lot about, and the founder of the Asset Management Summit. Gary, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and that's great that you bought the book. That's awesome.
Absolutely, I read it. I got my tabs, so I have my little note tabs that we're going to talk about the things that kind of piqued my interest, and that way we can dive deep into those. But I guess before we get into the book and the website and your new venture and your courses and all that, let's just who is Gary? I guess. How did you get here?
Yeah, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, never really worked for anyone else. And, just learned by doing. And, I co-produced a few independent films in my 20s. I started a after-school outdoor ed and leadership development company in Southern California. And we worked with over 9,000 students daily. During that time, I started investing in real estate. And when I sold that at the end of 2016, I got into real estate full-time and found my way to multifamily, which was a really good fit for me because it's each property is like owning a business, a lot of project management, a lot of herding cats. And so found my way and just, educated myself as much as possible. And I was able to blend my creative side and my business side and, just partner with some good people and just took off running.
I love it. I love how your story is a little bit different than everybody else's. Most of the people is that they are trying to skip the W-2, that whole rat race thing. And so it's refreshing to see that you're like, I've never really did anything. I've had to eat, what I kill since day one, and forged in fire. And I love it. All right. So what is your why behind your new venture here, or your or passive income? What's driving you?
Yeah, it's being in control of my own destiny and not relying on others to figure out what is going to work for me. Like I know how much money I'm gonna make and how much work I need to put in, and I could set my own hours, and that drives me personally. Versus working for someone else, it just didn't drive me as much. And obviously, I want to take care of my family. I've got 2 girls, and provide for them, and my why is also to have something that makes me, when I wake up every morning, excited to go to work and kick butt. And if I was working for someone else, I wouldn't have that drive, that energy, that passion.
Absolutely. And I love it too. That internal drive. I've read David Goggins' book, recently for like the 3rd time. And I always go to that book when I'm feeling like kind of down about myself, or like my energy levels are low. And then you kind of read that, and it definitely gets you a kick in the butt. Like, that drive, that motivation needs to come internally, and you need to bring it every day. And you need to always be reminded of that. So, one of the things that you specialize in that I don't think any other guest that we've had specialized in, or has maybe not specialized, but has an affinity toward, is asset management. Like I was telling you before the show, I'm the asset manager of Tri-City Equity Group. So we essentially do the same roles in each one of our companies. I love it. I love solving problems. I love setting up the systems and processes, managing kind of the machine, and make sure you do all the little tweaks and everything's running smoothly. But what drew you to that role as being the asset manager, and so far as to create a course about it, a meetup about it, or the summit about it, and write a book and all that?
Yeah, it's taking what I know, which, the running of businesses and people, and putting systems into place, and taking, maximizing profit and solving problems, and that was my strength that I could bring to the two deals. And then we launched all these other things because one, we also still wanted to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. I don't know it all. I will never know it all. And so, if we can share our experiences and what we're good at, and also bring on other experts and learn from them too. Hey, let's roll with it and teach others, because, it's not the sexy part of the business, but that's where all the profit is. That's real the difference maker. And, people are to teach you how to get the deal. So we wanted to focus on what you do with the deal afterwards, and that's a real separator between operators.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody listening, like that knows my story, if you listen to any of my previous podcasts on here, is like when I hit my brick wall in my personal journey, I was like, I can't scale any more than where I'm at now. I think I had 20 units at the time, and I was like, I needed to find something else. I need to go to that next level of education. And so I started looking around and of who was out there providing that level of education of, the full gamut of everything to do with the deal. And most of the ones I would say 9 out of 10 of them stopped at the closing table. So they taught you how to build your lists and raise money and underwrite deals and financial modeling. And then it's like close and like, okay, now just hire a property manager and start cashing checks and, wait 5 years and sell. And I was like, well, I know that's not how this works. Like I've been in project management long enough through my day job that's not how this works. So it took me a long time to find, that extra level of education. And obviously this was way before your new book came out, even before your course came out. And so I kind of I did find a group that had that. And then a lot of it was just learning it and building the systems, those asset management systems internally as well. Just marrying what I learned from 15 years being in the military with as a project manager with what I was seeing every day. So I guess we can switch gears to your book. So new book, Best in Class, got on Amazon, so it's available everywhere. Well, Amazon, so it's pretty much everywhere. Tell us about the book and what drove you to the book, and what are some of your favorite chapters and all our topics, and I will tell you some of mine. The six tabs I have in here that were my favorite spots.
Nice. Yeah, we take someone through the whole journey from due diligence all the way to the end of disposition, and so someone can read the book and get a really good feel for how to asset management. And then we, if you buy the book, then we share a lot of free resources too on some of the things that we use. And we're always looking to improve the templates and whatnot that we use, but we definitely share them. But I mean, there's so many parts of the book that I love. I mean, KPIs is certainly a near and dear to me, because that's how you evaluate everything. We want to break down every little task so we can understand where the bottlenecks are. And that's really like the key takeaway. It's like being proactive and breaking everything down,
Yeah, like you said, so KPIs was my one of my tabs I did out too. Because a lot of people they get hung up on like the high level ones, like what's your occupancy? I'm like, I don't really care about my physical occupancy. What's the economic occupancy? What's my break even rate? What's my loss to lease burn? Right? Those are the things that you need to be tracking. And obviously in here, there was like 30 or 40 key performance indicators that you need to be managing, not just quarterly, not just annually, like sometimes daily. For example, if you have an asset that you're doing a heavy reposition on, you're going to have high vacancy. You need to be tracking like your pre-lease daily. You need to be tracking, how many your lead conversion or what is it? Your LASL, which is your leads and applications and showings and all that daily. to push through and not just quarterly things. So yeah, KPIs, that whole chapter about key performance indicators is key. And then building the systems that make it easier for you to track that stuff daily, weekly, monthly. And then that goes right into my second one I had in there was manage the manager. So when I tell people what I do as an asset manager, that the first thing that comes out of my mouth is, well, I set up teams and then I manage the manager. I go there, I take over the asset, buy all the subscriptions and whatever contracts we need to sign and set up active campaign and all this stuff and apartments.com and all that. And then train the manager on the Tri-City way of doing things and then manage them. And so what is your take on what managing the manager is?
Yeah, you got to make them part of your team. They're not going to care as much for the property as you are. And it's not because they're not doing a good job. It's not, they just don't own it. So you got to make them feel part of the team, that their input matters. You've got to celebrate wins and provide incentives for them. And they'll work harder for you than they've worked for any other owner. And that's key, because you want them to feel that they matter. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And sometimes you may need to fire someone from that team, whether it's on the regional manager or the property manager or a leasing agent. Those things happen, but you want to set them up for success. And that's the most important piece. Set them up for success. And if it doesn't work out, and if you have provided feedback right away, don't wait 3 months. If it's not working, attack it right away. And, if you have to cut ties, then you do. But, the key is making them, part of that team.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned in incentives, and we've done things like if you hit a certain, most of our incentives, we do them up with all of our property managers is NOI based. Because the easy ones, like, okay, well, if you keep occupancy over 95, you'll get an extra either percentage or fixed rate a month bonus. I'm like, well, occupancy is only one side of the story, right? I need the NOI to increase. That's where the property value is derived from. So I need the NOI to hit certain metrics. So I have like milestones set. Well, if you keep an NOI of X for a quarter, you'll get a 1% bonus or whatever it is, or a fixed rate. And then also on disposition, which is the most critical time, right? You got to keep everything super stable. It's like, okay, well, if you keep, occupancy and above 95 and the NOI at this level, then we'll give you, I think for us, we're doing like 3 months of a bonus, like at closing. Like if you can maintain this performance that we are saying in the OM, we'll give you a 3-month bonus. And they were very receptive to that. So the incentives do work. And then the flip side of that is you need to keep them accountable. You need to hold them accountable. And that's the one that is the hardest thing about being an asset manager, is holding people accountable. And it's, every person's different. You get very much in the people side of things of how do you get through to certain people and their personalities and things like that. And, but that is one of the biggest things. You gotta hold them accountable. If they're not living up to the expectations, like you said, you have to tell them right away, immediate feedback, and then hold them accountable and get them to hold their leasing agents accountable and whatnot. Yeah.
So what we do is we put our tasks on our weekly. We have a Google sheet that tracks our weekly reports. And so if there's a task, we'll put the name of who's responsible for it, when it's due by, what the task is. So it's there for everyone to see. And you don't want to be that person that, is not held accountable. And it's always on Google Sheets. Everyone can access it. So if you forget, it's always there. You can check it. And so that really helps holding people accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's many ways to do that. Is, Google Sheets is probably the easiest one. We use Google Sheets. That's where my pulse checks live, is in Google Sheet. My weekly pulse checks live in Google Sheets. For task management, we use things like Mike Monday and Asana. The point is, like, here's the task, here's who it's assigned to, and here's the deadline. And then how you do that is, whatever, but it's that it's getting done. It's that everything has a name and a deadline. I love it. One of the other things I love in this book, and people are very reluctant to do it, is to pivot and adapt when the business plan isn't working as planned. And we actually have an example of like real time of what we're doing at one of our assets. But I want to hear your take on pivoting from a business plan, or a story that you've had to do that, and what was the circumstances surrounding it?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of different ones, but our first property was a 42 unit, and we were hitting out of the park right from the beginning. We thought we'd have tremendous turnover because we were moving up rents 50% or more, and almost everyone was staying. So we were well above our pro forma. So 6 months into it, we sat down with our broker and our regional manager, and we came up with an idea to create a premium unit. Spend I think it was $1,800 more, and we got like a $95 rent bump. And so we were creating an opportunity for the next buyer for a premium unit that meat on the bone on this property. And we were able to exit out of this property in under 2 years, and a tremendous return for our investors because of what we created, because of that pivot, and just created a ton of value.
Nice. And the only way you were able to see that is because of you were tracking KPIs, because you're so in tune with the property, and you weren't just, like I said, just set it and forget it, give it to a property manager and just let them set the rates, let them set everything. So being there, being present, you can identify those opportunities. And, a similar, not so similar one that we're dealing with is, during one of our assets has storage units, like self-storage in the back of it. And, obviously there's a whole craze on self-storage right now. And I was like, there's a big lot that we could have finished out. Okay, well, so we have a piece of a construction line from our loan to add more storage units. And the whole plan, we did some market research, we did some beta testing and some sample ads, and, we got some traction on that. And like, okay, let's do more storage units. And then the ones we had, after we closed, like we had about 5 empty ones, and we couldn't lease them. And we're like, well, what's going on here? So we're doing boosted Facebook ads. We're putting them out on all the sites, specials and everything. We couldn't lease the 5 that we already had. And after about 2 or 3 months, and I was like, all right, something's wrong here. I'm not going to go invest another, bunch of money to build more of these things if we can't even fill the ones we have. So I kind of pumped the brakes on that line item, and, brought it back to the table. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not comfortable, deploying this capital at this line. What else can we use it for? This property has evaporative coolers, so swamp coolers, as they're called, and which is not forced air AC for everybody listening. As we're, a lot of the northern states are familiar with, a lot of newer class assets are familiar with. C-class evaporated coolers, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's not forced chilled air. It's something in between. So I was like, okay, well, let's take that money and let's run an analysis if we took that money and invested in upgrading those evaporative coolers to forced HVAC units. Go get bids, and let's do a market test to see what the premium is I can get for that. And the average was about anywhere from $50 to like $90, $100 for comparative, apples to apples units, that this one has forced air, this one doesn't, has evap coolers. And, did the quick math on that and realized, okay, this money is much better deployed in this line item, which is the HVAC. So called the bank, pitched my proposal of adapting, and like, hey, this is what we thought. I don't feel comfortable doing this. Let's pivot, put that money here. They loved the idea, and we moved forward with it. We put it to vote, and now we're pivoting away from the storage units into upgrading the evap cooler. So again, that was only because we were on the calls weekly, and I was getting, weekly, how many leads did we get? How many of those converted to applications? And realizing that our hypothesis of adding more storage units was going to be a good NOI did not come true, and having that kind of transparency and I guess humility of like, hey, we were wrong. Let's pivot and move on. So that is very important when you have business plans, is they can be flexible.
Yeah, I love it. That's exactly what you have to do, and having those buffers in your CapEx and beta testing, because you never know what's going to be the next, really good thing for your property. So you have a business plan that's written out, and you spend a lot of time on it. But once you get in there, you got to have that flexibility. So, that's the difference between being a really good asset manager or not, because a lot of people, just kind of, like you said, you handed the keys to the property manager and it's like, I'm off to my next deal, see ya.
Yeah, absolutely. So and that's just one example. I'm glad that you're exiting a property. We said that 2 years and it was a 5-year deal.
Yeah, actually, that one was a 6-year deal.
Okay.
And we're actually exiting another one that'll be under 2 years as well. And we actually pivoted there too. We added. We didn't budget for paint, and I mean this was. Geez, I think we spent extra $80,000, but we had extra CapEx money on things that we didn't spend, and we thought it would really help beautify the property. And you can't show the correlation between rents, but we know our rent went up and our occupancy went up because of this. And yeah, I mean, we bought it for 15, we're selling it for like a lot more in under 2 years. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I love seeing business plans accelerate that, and I'm sure that's going to bring you some repeat investors, which is always good to have. Is happy investors, happy partners, happy bankers are your biggest investor, because they're probably getting usually some kind of prepay and they're getting the next loan, right? So keep everybody happy. But so one of the other things I had in here, again, a super unsexy part about the asset management is like utility savings and green reports, which is one of my favorite things, because it's so easy. Like the ROI you get on a green report and actually executing that it's hard to beat that for dollar for dollar. So what do you do when you do utility savings? Is there any kind of strategies you go after? Do you just hire a green report in like a SaaS type company and just say, hey, do it? Or do you go through a little bit more granular than that?
Because we don't want to put too much in our underwriting based on that, because you don't know until you implement it. So we'll certainly get estimates on how much savings and whatnot. And maybe we'll budget for 50% if max in the first year, and then closer to 100% the second year. But it takes time to implement, and I think a lot of people mistake by putting it all the savings in day one. But yeah, we'll first obviously we'll ask, do you have LED lights? Do you have the water flow, low flow toilets and shower heads and all that? And then during due diligence we'll get all the reports that we need and implement that plan. But on our underwriting, we're very conservative on that stuff, because there's no exact science. I mean, they'll try to get it down to that exact science, but you don't know until you officially implement it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for our underwriting, our standard is usually about 10, like a 10% discount. Like my initial, my first draft of my analysis, I'm like, okay, well, their utility bill is $100,000. Like I'm fairly confident I can knock 10% off that with even the most basic, utility savings plan. And one of the things that we like using, so I'm gonna do a plug on this website called Conservation Mart. I don't know if it's a .com or .org, but it's like they wholesale a lot of these things, like the aerators, the shower heads, the little toilet kits. So we closed part of my takeover package is this huge box from the Conservation Mart, where it has 100 shower heads in it and aerators and toilet valves and the little bladder things and light bulbs if we need it. But they're pretty good on their discount. They're hard to beat. So definitely I'm not affiliate or anything. But they're my go-to for wholesaling that stuff and make it super easy to order from. And then one of the other things, if you don't want to go through a company, is a lot of states. I know Michigan does it, and I think Tennessee does it as well. I'm for sure on that, and Texas does it as well. So contact your utility companies, and they usually offer some kind of energy conservation program. Well, they'll come and give you thermostats for $10 or something, or $5 for thermostats, or light bulbs for 25 cents a piece, LED light bulbs. So definitely part of your due diligence should be to contact the utility companies, ask them if they have a green plan or savings plan, energy conservation plan, or if they give discounted prices for those things, because you'd be surprised at what the rebates you can get or the discounts you can get on those type of things. Like I said, we got 100 LED light bulbs for like a quarter a piece. Like it was pretty surprising.
And also the where you're buying, they might have grants or whatnot for different things. There's a property that we're closing on in under 2 weeks, and they have kind of like it's a beautification grant, which $20,000, which is fantastic that we can potentially get to on the front of the part that's facing the main road. So, yeah. So we're excited about that. So you never know.
Yeah, you just got to look, and a lot of places to go. So again, for those listening, on your due diligence checklist, have some person on your team, could just be a VA, like go to the Chamber of Commerce, go to like the city and the county websites and look for these things. They're usually posted right on those type of city county websites of opportunity zones and funding and grants, and all this stuff is there. And to Gary's point, we're doing the exact same thing. I'm not, ours isn't a beautification grant, but it's a state funded, Energy Star upgrade where windows is part of it. And we have a property where we're changing out like 300 windows. So anything is going to help on that bill because it's like $200,000. So, I can spend 10 minutes applying for this grant for these Energy Star windows. And, if I get some money off that, that's huge. It's, and that's going right into the CapEx and knocking that stuff off. So it's worth the time invest, even if you just get a VA to do it. Have the checklist item, put it in your due diligence checklist to knock those things out. I'm loving it. This is getting exciting. All right, one of my favorite topics, and one of the ones I keep having to foot stomp with my students and my people that I talk to, especially on the first deal, especially on the first big deal, is being well capitalized. And the pain and stress and sleepless nights that I had on my first deal with, that Tri-City did, first did is, we kind of just got our money together and we had like just enough money to close. And we're like, okay, we closed our first deal and, I think there was like 20 grand left over, which at that time, yeah, sure. It was like a month and a half or 2 months of the debt service, but that was gone pretty quickly because of an unforeseen event. Like, nobody paid on the first, and we closed on like the 29th, and like, okay, it's okay on the first, everybody's going to pay. And like, okay, sure. What happens if they don't pay? And that's what happened. Is like half the residents didn't pay on the first. And it was like a big thing. But that was a very stressful time that I try to relate to people of like not being well capitalized. So I don't know what your take is on that. And I don't know if you have any stories or situations where that helped bail you out, especially with COVID, right?
Yeah. I mean, we were on all of our properties, we actually did, pretty well during COVID. And we were able to pivot during COVID as well. It was nice because, we had lots of capital reserves. We always put in buffers. I mean, I don't care if the roof is in pristine condition, brand new, HVACs, all new. We're going to still put in 150,000 for each. Just things break. You never know what's going to happen. You never know when COVID or Texas freeze is going to happen. If you're raising $3 million and if you raise it just a couple $100,000 more just for buffer, it's not going to affect the IRR too much. And people that are, gunning for the 19 IRR or whatnot, it's go a little lower. It's okay. If you have an investor out there just strictly going for IRR, then they're going to get screwed on a bad deal somewhere else. I always like under promise and overperform. Protect yourself, protect your investors, and like you said, you'll have the ability to pivot. And if you don't end up spending that money, fantastic. You can use that for distribution throughout the length of the ownership, or you do it at the end. It doesn't, just because you raise it doesn't mean you have to spend it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, the people that were sweating, March 2020 were the ones that weren't well capitalized. And admittedly, everybody was sweating March 2020. But as COVID kind of dragged on maybe a couple months later, the ones that kind of like, okay, the world's not ending. This is just going to hurt. It's going to suck. But the ones that were well capitalized and reminding their investors, hey, we have $500,000 in the bank. Here's the calculations. We can survive X number of months or X number. I think for one of our deals that we had, La Porta, we immediately did a webinar. Again, transparency, communication, key to asset management. We immediately did a webinar. And was like, look, we just closed this deal. It was a 48 unit. I think we had like over $200,000 to $250,000. So on a 48 unit deal, C-class deal, that's a lot. And I was like, look, we can last 18 months of debt service and OPEX getting nothing, like $0 in income. So even if, half of the residents pay through this thing, we can last, 2 years or whatever, 3 years. So doing that and having your break-even costs at different levels of occupancy and being very on top of those things, you will go a long way, and especially communicating through that. But after being in a deal where I wasn't well capitalized and being in a deal that we were more than capitalized, like you said, if we don't need it, we'll just disperse it back to the investors. I slept a lot better on the Porta deal. So lesson learned there for us is we always will have, like, whatever the underwriting says, like the 2.5 months and all that, like, okay, we're just going to add another, couple $100,000 on it. Like, that's the default now, because you never know what's going to happen. COVID or any other freak thing or freak expense. So that was one of the biggest lessons I learned. And I keep having to tell, and the reason it's important is not just right now, like after you close, but when you're underwriting, not trying to fool yourself into getting a 19% IRR by having, bringing your reserves down, either your interest reserves or your CapEx reserves or your replacement reserves or your just working capital reserves. So all your different reserve buckets, it's way too easy to start trimming those down to get your returns up, because you're lowering your equity injection, and you're just fooling yourself, and you're going to put yourself in a bad position and your investors in a bad position by doing that. So stay well capitalized. Yeah. A couple points in IRR is not going to kill the deal.
Yeah, your passive investors listening right now, chase good operators. Don't chase IRR, because you'll end up being benefit much greater that way.
Absolutely. So. Well, I think we beat up the. Is there anything else you want to talk about your awesome book, Best in Class?
But if people really love the book. We have a course that goes into much more detail, so they can go to assetmanagementmastery.com to learn more about that, and look for our summits we have about every 10 months or so.
Yeah, you got some big hitters giving you some praise down here. I guess I never looked at the advanced praise. First one on the page, Neil Bawa. So that's some big hitters praising this book. It's awesome. Love it. Is there anything else, any other topics you want to talk about? We can wrap it up.
No, I mean, it's been awesome talking about asset management and hear the things that you're doing. I mean, you're doing all the right things, which is awesome. And because there's so many operators that there are a lot of good operators out there, and then there's a lot of operators that aren't, doing the things that we're doing. And it's awesome to hear. I jotted down, conservation mart as well. So I'm going to look into them, so I learned something here as well. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. No, it's just fun. I feel like I'm probably going to have you back on here as a repeat guest in I don't know, maybe a few months, because there's so much about, this topic, about this position that, again, there's not a whole lot of people focusing on asset management. And it is the thing that's going to make or break the deal, right? Because you can do all this stuff, but at the end of the day, like after the closing, somebody needs to execute the business plan, right? And needs to do it efficiently and effectively, or you're not having those beach vacations and Lambos in your future. So right. That's why asset management is absolutely critical.
And you can take a good deal and make it a great deal, because all that difference is pure profit, goes right to your bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. And the proof is, you have 2 deals, like you said, you're exiting years ahead of schedule because of how effective and efficiently you were able to execute those business plans. So kudos to you. And it shows that it's, this stuff works, and it works very well. Well, I guess, we can wrap this up. So how can our listeners get a hold of you?
Yeah, you go to our website, breakofdaycapital.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Connect with me. Love to hear from you. And if you go to our website, we have a free passive investors guide. And that's it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Gary, for coming on. Again, everybody get the book. It's an awesome read. Definitely a lot of content. And there is a website on there that has all the free additional stuff as well. So you'll get even more stuff, more value, and it's definitely worth the few bucks you're going to spend on it. And if you're interested in learning more about passive investing, go to TriCityEquityGroup.com and download our free guide. To connect with like-minded investors, join our Facebook group, Honolulu Multifamily and more. And if you found value in this podcast, please subscribe and give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this from. And if you know anyone that may resonate with today's podcast, please share the episode, and see you next time.
And we're also super excited to share with everyone our upcoming conference. So this is going to be called the Hawaii Millionaire Mindset Conference, which will actually be held here in Hawaii for our listeners that are international or different parts of the country. Great opportunity to come out and take a little business trip and bring the family out. It's entitled The Blueprint. So, come join great top industry leaders for motivation, training, of course, lots of networking. Your net worth is your network. And that is absolutely shown to be true time and time again for me. So that's going to be happening here again next year. So this will be July 21st to the 24th. That will be happening at the Four Seasons here in beautiful Hawaii. We are having early bird specials that are starting even right now. So if you want to check out the site, learn a little bit more about the conference and get the absolute best pricing that you're going to get on the conference, make sure you go check out Millionaire Mindset Blueprint.com. Again, that's millionairesmindsetblueprint.com to find out more. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Aloha. Thanks for joining us.